And to prove the knowledge of God, we follow different arguments. Many of them can repeat here. For example, we have power. Human beings have great power, although compared to the power of God is nothing, but still we can do many, many things. Okay? Where does this power come from? It comes from God. So he must have more power than us. All the things that happen in the nature, all the things that animals do, birds do, plants do, all the things that, for example, even non-living beings do. For example, you can have the power of water, okay, to make electricity. All this power, all the power which is in fuel, all these powers and forces, whether it's by will or not being will, whether it's power or it's just force, they all come from God. Like anything which happens in your mind, it comes from you. If in your mind there is an elephant who is able to carry something, where does the power of elephant come from? It's coming from you. So everything comes from the source, which is God. So we cannot think that we have power, but this power is not coming from God. So this is one way. The other way is, for example, to look at it from Burhan Nazm and say, who has created this sophisticated order? The one who has knowledge and power. Because without power, you cannot create, even if you have knowledge. Or, for example, Burhan Fitrat. We said, every person in his or her innate knowledge knows that God is there, is aware, and is able to help. So the power is known through Burhan Fitrat. It's not difficult to understand the power of God. The main thing is to understand few things about the power of God. One thing that sometimes, people don't understand, don't get it right, is when we say God has power for doing everything, it doesn't mean that we expect from God to do impossible things. We say, Huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. He's capable of doing everything. So there must be something. There must be something that you can conceive, something which is possible, not something which is paradoxical, something which is contradiction. For example, you say, can God make 2 + 2 5? You say, 2 + 2 is 4, and this is a logical impossibility to have 2 + 2 5. You cannot measure the power of God by asking him to do something which is impossible. Something which is impossible doesn't happen. Like what? For example, I tell you that there is a person who is very, very, very established, well-known mathematician. You can ask him about anything in mathematics, and he gives you the answer. Then you say, okay, I have a question to test him. So when you meet him, you say, can you make 2 + 2 5? He says, no. He says, so you don't know anything. No, this is childish, that you want to understand someone's knowledge of mathematics by asking him to do something which is impossible. Okay? When we are talking about power, it's about something which in itself doesn't involve contradictions, something which is not mumtana', which is not impossible. Can God make a partner for himself? Can God create another God? If you understand really what you are saying, you would know that what you say doesn't make sense. Because another God means he has to be necessary being. Then how a necessary being can be created? It doesn't make sense. Okay? make a triangle a square. Triangle cannot be a square. A square cannot be triangle. If you know what is triangle and what is a square, you would not ask such questions. Can God make a rock which is bigger than himself? It's impossible. How a creature of God can be bigger than God? So when we say God is capable of doing everything, means everything which is possible. The second point, when we say God is capable of doing everything, it doesn't mean that he actually does everything. No. First of all, it's impossible to do everything that you can do. Why? Because always power means to do or not to do. You have power for both. So you always can take one option. Either you decide to do or you decide not to do. Although you have power for both. So no one does everything that he can do because we decide one side. So God may decide to do or may decide not to do, depending on his hikmah, that inshallah we will talk about it. So we should not think that everything that God is able to do, he will do. For example, is God capable of doing injustice? This is a question, very difficult question. It's not in the book, but maybe it's good exercise for you. Is God able to do injustice or not? Injustice by itself is not impossible. Injustice is not like making 2 + 2 5. Okay? And this is why we can do injustice, and we do injustice, unfortunately. We do zulm. If zulm was like making 2 + 2 5, we were not able to doing zulm. So it means zulm is possible. Okay? It means that zulm in itself doesn't involve any contradiction, doesn't contradict itself or anything. Okay? So injustice is possible. And everything which is possible, God can do. But God never does injustice. So now you learn another concept. And that is the concept of muhal wuqu'i. We have muhal dhati and muhal wuqu'i. Sometimes something is impossible in itself by its essence, like 2 + 2 becoming 5. Sometimes something in itself, it's not impossible, but to be issued from God, to be committed by God, for example, it's impossible. It can have also other cases of muhal wuqu'i. So, for God to do injustice is possible in essence, in the sense that injustice is something which is possible. But God never does injustice. Why? Because every action, even if it is possible logically, has to have some resemblance with the agent. There must be something in the agent that would drive him to this. For God, who is perfect, there is no chance of committing injustice. Not that because he doesn't have power, it's because it doesn't suit his nature. Do you understand? This is, we call it muhal wuqu'i. Because who is doing zulm? The one who is weak, the one who is needy, the one who is ignorant. Because sometimes people do injustice because they don't know. If they knew, they wouldn't have done injustice. Sometimes they know, but they are weak. They have limitations. They think by zulm they become richer. By zulm they become powerful. By zulm they can gain control. Or sometimes they have bad character. They are bad people. They enjoy people suffering. In the case of Allah, there is no ignorance. There is no vicious nature, there is no also incompetence. إنما يحتاج إلى الظلم الضعيف. The only one who needs to do injustice is the one who is za'if, who is weak. So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will never do injustice, because injustice has nothing to do with that beautiful, perfect nature of God. Okay, you understand? Although injustice in itself is not like 2 plus 2 becoming 5. Injustice in itself is something possible, and this is why it happens. Do you understand? Okay. So, first, God has capability and power to do everything, but everything means everything which is possible. And we mean by possible here to be in itself possible, logically impossible. Second thing, God has capability of doing everything, but it's not that everything that he's able to do, he will do it. He will do certain things according to his will, and he would not do other things according to his will. Or he decide when to do it. He decides where to do it. Maybe he sends rain in one place and doesn't send rain to another place. Maybe he sends rain today and not, for example, yesterday. So he is not forced. He decides when, where, how to do things, and whether to do things or not. And also, I said, there are things that are possible in themselves, but they will not be issued from God. Issue, I'm using issue in the sense of sodur. It's a term we use in philosophy. Issuance means sodur. La yastur. They don't come from God. They are not issued from God. And we explained the difference between muhal dhati and muhal wuqu'i.